Yeah, I just keep it steady on the magic. Do my thing, I'm healing, it's fantastic. If I fall, rise automatic. You ain't no now, you know. I'm the one rain myself like a tree from the roots. West side girl, cause she lit in the coast. East side girl when she speaks to the roots. Stay 100 cause she on with the truth. Been there on struggle, know that it pass. Only going up, yeah, the pain don't last. Ooh, take off. Ooh, take off. Ooh, take off. This is take off, take off, take off. Shorty like Brandy, fight like Monica. What you know about her? Baby girl rising, way to the top. Shaking the world, don't expect her to stop. Purpose so great, she get what she got. Follow her step, cause she following God. What you need more, got a heart full of gold. Even at times when it's raining and cold. Ooh, she bout take off. Ooh, she bout.
What up, everybody? It's your girl Hannah, aka Roots High, and you are watching the Uprooted Network. Today is none other than Manifest Mondays, and you might have peeped I'm a little bit late today because we are talking about managing triggers. And in true irony, I was triggered this morning, and so I had to use the very techniques I'm talking about today with you guys to get myself together so I could get on this show. And it took a little bit longer, but sometimes you got to give yourself that space and grace. And this month I've been talking to you guys all about domestic violence awareness and honoring my cousin that has passed, my aunt that has passed, countless people I know that have been in abusive relationships, myself being a victim and a secondhand victim to violence. So it's been quite the triggering month. To say the least. And then this morning, I woke up to bad news about McCullough being bombed once again and this ongoing Tigray genocide. Our state sponsored leaders think it's okay to bomb civilians that are not part of fighting, and they use it as scare tactics, and they use it to try to remain in power and in control. And the one thing this year has taught me is the psychological warfare is no joke. All right. It is no joke at all. It is difficult as hell. And all along this way in this year, in the last 2 years, honestly, people have just kept saying these things to me like, I don't know how you deal with it all. I don't know how you manage it. I just don't get it. You look so healthy, and again, right, the irony of my life and the irony of life in general is while I'm going through the most difficult time of my life, I'm also probably my healthiest. And I think it's because I've been forced to use these techniques to keep sane. And luckily, I have picked up enough healthy ones and have studied and understood my brain enough to know what I'm going through and how to combat that. But it is exhausting, and I will not lie to you guys. It is extremely, extremely exhausting to do this type of work on yourself every day. And that's why I promote therapy. And I understand not everyone can afford therapy, or, maybe it's still not like culturally acceptable wherever you're from, whatever the reason, maybe you just aren't exposed to it. But I was like, well, I'm doing this work, so we're going to do this work together. And everyone knows Manifest Mondays is one of my favorite segments and things to do because it's been the one thing that has helped me stay positive throughout everything that we've been facing as human beings in this very tragic time in our histories. And there is power and strength in manifesting and hoping and praying for a better future. Like there is power and hope, like Obama said in his book, right? The audacity of hope. And manifesting for me allows me to find that inner peace and to center myself in my own wants and dreams, and not what the rest of the world wants for me. And I don't pretend that that's an easy thing to do. It's not. It's a difficult journey, and that's why I do it with you guys. So, in truth to transparency and in vulnerability all the time, because I like to practice what I preach and I walk the talk, it was a very difficult morning for me. I have had a very difficult month as it is, but it's been a very difficult morning. And to say that um, this talk and this lesson couldn't have come at a better time. I almost at this point literally plan out the things that I need. Like I just see how God keeps showing up in my life because in about a week and some change, it will be the 1 year anniversary of the start of this genocide. And then today, to get news again of Makela being bombed felt like the first time I heard it. Um, but I instinctively like didn't react. It was a true testament to at this point understanding myself and my emotions and knowing how to maneuver through them. So that's what I want to talk to you guys about today because when we don't know how to deal with the stress and the love and the darkness that we're dealing with, it makes it really difficult to try to reach for another tomorrow. So I want to start off by saying, do we all know what a trigger really is? I think at this point, a lot of us do, but just to be clear and to remember, triggers are essentially internal or external events that happen. And there's a part of our brain, right? Like the prefrontal cortex, I'm gonna be a little bit nerdy, um, that controls all of our executive functioning, making our decisions, how we process all the information that we're taking in or that we're feeling internally, and what we do with that. So when we are triggered, what happens is another part of our brain called the amygdala that controls our fight or flight response, right? Like our danger response gets hijacked and is in control. And when we are in fight or flight, we go to certain tendencies of how we deal with that because you really do feel like you're in this survival mode. But a trigger can happen even when we're not in a life threatening situation, but we are maybe reminded of it or feeling like we're being attacked in some way. So, some of the ways that we get internally triggered is that, or that you can sense that you are being internally triggered, is when you feel like an extreme amount of anger. Um, and I usually call it like seeing red. Like, I don't ever like to get to the place where I see red because I'm just so angry. Um, I deal with a lot of anxiety and that nervousness feeling in your stomach that happens quite often where something triggers you where maybe you feel alone or abandoned by someone, where you just don't feel like you're in control of your life, you're feeling very vulnerable, um, you know, just being frustrated, like your day started off bad and you continued bad and you just every little thing after just keeps triggering you, like, God, why can't I have a good day? And you're just like constantly off kilter. Sometimes we are bombarded by memories, and those cause us like internal flux, muscle tension. Oh, we get pain. Like I always say, don't let this raise your blood pressure. Always saying that because I'm like, Black people, we deal with hypertension and we deal with high blood pressure and high blood sugar. So it's because we're constantly being triggered because of all the trauma that we have, and trauma is passed down genetically. So if you think about what has happened to Black people as a diaspora, we've dealt with a lot of shit, and it's very very triggering for us. So there's tons of things. And then external triggers, this is the one that like people love to say all the time, like, oh, he triggered me. It's like, did he trigger you, or did what he say triggered you? And that's really key for us to understand. Sometimes for us, if you are Tagaru, this year, this whole coming to the 1 year mark of this, an anniversary of the pain and suffering that we have been dealing with for a year, that's an anniversary, and that's extremely triggering. A lot of us are feeling overwhelmed and a loss of sense of control and extremely sad because we're still checking our phones daily and seeing our people suffering. Um, Sometimes external like things that happen, or like even a smell can take you back to a moment that wasn't pleasant for you for whatever reason. Like those things can trigger like that fight or flight response in your brain. Having an argument with anybody, like I grew up in a house where people argued all the time, so whenever I sense like that argument nature, I just like shut down and just, I mean, I've worked on it now, but I used to shut down a lot. The relationships ending. My parents are divorced. Like that, would that feeling of abandonment definitely will trigger me. Um, Holidays are extremely triggering. So we think about seasonal depression. I want you to think about all the holidays that happen at this time of year. I Thanksgiving, even though I don't think it's a holiday that anyone should really celebrate, but it's an excuse for families to gather. um, Halloween, Christmas, especially Hanukkah, if you celebrate that. There's all types of different holidays that happen in the winter, and it can be one of two things. Either they're really supportive because you get to spend time with your loved ones, but it can also be very triggering if you can't spend time with them, or there's someone missing now, especially like the first year after you've lost somebody. That loss is that of the absence of their presence is very triggering, right? So there's that as well. And all of this is just your body reacting, your mind reacting to something that was so hurtful to you normally. And the key really here and how we deal with this and why we deal with this is to figure out what it is that's triggering us. So the next step really here is to name it, right? Can we identify our triggers? And a tool for this is to give yourself time and space to practice, to understand, to reflect on what happened in that moment. So, like, really practice this idea of self awareness and have friends that will call you out or call you in. It's really helpful. Zuhair, I see you said language is key on triggers. Language is very key. What triggers me might not trigger the next person, right? So being able to identify that and name it is really important. So if I'm in conversation with my friends, and for instance right now, like I'll just use this as an example, like I I don't think I'll ever be able to talk casually about air bombardments, about raids, about just bombing people in general. Like that is gonna forever trigger me. If you are a Tagaru, if you are an indigenous people, if you've suffered this type of just barbaric behavior of how we torture and kill each other, that's extremely triggering, right? It is. And when you're having conversations with people and we're talking about actual human suffering and they're talking about it like it's a casual conversation of like, yeah, I heard there was an airstrike yesterday. I might I might be triggered. Most likely, most definitely will be triggered by just that, right? And so the first step for me is like, can I identify that? I know that that's a trigger for me. And you can't address or fix things if you can't name them, if you can't identify them, if you don't see the pattern. And something that's really important here, and I'll talk about it in a second, is um, journaling and taking notes on it. So that's why I say use reflection questions like, what was it about that environment? What were the words that were said? Like, what emotions did I feel? Like, be present in your body. Like, did did my blood pressure rise? Maybe. Did I immediately want to cuss somebody out? Probably. Like, pay attention to those signs and symptoms of when you are emotionally triggered. This is really, really important to noticing your pattern and being able to overcome them and take control back of your body. Um, the second step is to take space appropriately. So this is what we got to really get better at. And it's okay. Like, you can't actually control that first reaction that you have when something has triggered you, whether it's an internal or an external situation. It's just a shortcut in your brain. It just happens naturally. But the more time you spend identifying it and understanding it, the better you can handle it, and the less you will react, because you're creating a different wiring for your brain that I understand why this is hurting me, but I'm not interested in reacting in this way anymore. And like, it's a practice, but you can't do that unless you name it. So when we talk about taking space appropriately, if we understand what a trigger is, and we understand anytime you have like a very strong emotional reaction to something that comes on suddenly, that is a trigger. If you don't know what it is that's triggering you, the best thing to do is take space. And it doesn't mean take space in terms of, let me go fight this person or let me cuss them out. Even if that feels good to you in the moment, it doesn't actually solve your problem. It doesn't actually help you understand how to not be back in that situation. And so, something that you can do is take some time, ask for a break. You don't have to say, hey, I'm triggered right now. You can, if you feel safe enough to say that with a friend or a partner, that's fine. But you don't always have to say that. You can really just take this time to be like, let's take a pause right here. I just need to process this before I respond. It can be, you know what, let's all take a recess, a 5 minute, like, let's go to the bathroom, or whatever it is that can buy you some time so that you're not immediately reacting. Because sometimes that is just your trauma response, and our trauma responses can be very ugly. And it might actually create a bigger problem, especially if this is someone that you love and care about and they didn't try to, or they weren't intentionally triggering you. You don't necessarily want to take it out on them, because it's not about them. It's about how you are feeling and what was sparked in you that created that feeling. So, heavy emphasis on the taking space appropriately and thinking about what you need in your life, and what would make you feel better in the moment. If you can't physically leave a space, I want you to think about, can I count to 10 in my head and take some deep breaths? And that actually takes us into the third step, which is to shift your states. Um, you're in a highly emotional state, and you need to switch over to a calm and safer and sane, peaceful place for yourself. And there's definitely different ways of doing this. Um, so many different ones, and it's a lot of trial and error. This is, what you hope you get when you're parenting a child, is to help them figure out how to self-regulate and soothe and all of these things. So what you want to really do here is, you are aware of what the trigger is, hopefully, right? Or at least aware that you're being triggered in the moment, even if you don't know why yet. And you are taking the space you need appropriately. Some things that you can do to help you shift your state of being, so getting yourself out of that triggered space, is deep breathing. A lot of us breathe really shallow from our chest, right? And also, I found a lot of these great tips in a toolkit, a managing your triggers toolkit, because Google's amazing and you can find things like this. I will link it in the bio, or link it in the description after this, but also I just want to kind of talk you through a couple of things that I do, right? So, like, deep breathing is like, you can put your hand on your chest and another one on your stomach. You can't see in this video. And you want to make sure that you're breathing from a deep place. So, like, all the way from your diaphragm. And what you want to do is, like, maybe you're doing 5 seconds on the inhale, 8 on the exhale. You want to spend more time on that. So, really taking some deep breaths will immediately change your state of being, because it's giving your brain a second to pause. In that second to pause, it gives you the ability to think before you react. And that is the most powerful thing you can do. So, if you can do some, like, deep breaths, right? Those are really, really impactful, and it doesn't cost you anything. It's really just getting into the habit of don't respond right away. Don't just react, because if you're being emotionally triggered, you're most likely not going to react from a good place. It's not going to be from your best self. It's going to be from your hurt self. And when we keep responding from our hurt self, that's where we get the hurt people concept. And so we want to break that curse and we want to break that pattern. And it's not easy, but it's really about you. Like triggers are all about you internally and how you manage your external world. So if taking a couple of deep breaths helps, do it, please. I said this earlier, but journaling, right? Expressive forms of writing are so essential, and we don't do it enough, myself included. And I'm trying to force myself to get back into that habit and create a daily exercise of it, because when you're new to this, and those of you who might not have, or who are just starting their healing journey, it's really, really imperative that you find a way to journal or even vlog, right? For yourself. You don't have to actually post it anywhere. If you can't, if you can't write it down, you can do an audio journal. You can put notes in your phone. There's voice memos in your phone. But the goal here is, can you reflect on your day? Can you pay attention to the moments that you weren't feeling good? What were the major events of the day that either had you really happy or really sad, or it just whatever the extremes of emotions, because we're not in one state of emotion all day. So journaling is really important so that you can start to log, like, well, how was my mood affected today and by what, right? And the more you do that, you can actually start to see a pattern. Like, okay, I noticed that when this and this and this happen, I react this way. And that's going to be key for you to be able to understand whatever your trigger is, right? If you don't do that, it's really hard to figure out what your pattern is, or when when you're like fight or flight response seems to be activated the most. Maybe it's a person, maybe you don't notice it, but every time you're around a person or a place, you always feel annoyed or irritated, right? And it's like, where does that come from? You won't know until you notice the pattern. So, writing is extremely helpful in understanding yourself and being able to talk about the things that bother you in a non-judgmental space, because it's only for you unless you choose to share it. This also helps with therapy, because if you do journal, it's much easier. You can go through it with your therapist and they can help you see patterns that you might not see, or give you these reminders and these tools and these self-help assignments to get you in a better place. um, there's also a lot of grounding techniques that you can do in the moment, like literally the deep breathing will help ground you. There's people who will touch something physical, to be like, okay, let me remind myself, like right now I'm touching my desk, let me remind myself where I'm at, because my mind is somewhere else. So physically grounding yourself again. um, what's some other things? I know some people sometimes will like walk in the grass or try to be in some type of physical nature. There are like counting practices with your breathing to help you kind of focus. Then it kind of goes hand in hand with mindfulness, because you're thinking about being mindful is like being completely present in the moment. And it's a very difficult thing to do when you're so used to distracting yourself, and we live in a world that constantly distracts us. We really do need to be more mindful. It has the biggest impact and effect on our mental health. So, for me, and those of you from the continent or from East Africa, know that we have a very strong culture of coffee, right? Boon, bunna, whatever you call it. Coffee is a global phenomenon. Ironically, I have this dope sticker from Shop Konjo. Look at, she said, pour up, drank. Um, it's an activity that we do daily, but if you actually are mindful about it and are present, it can really just alter and shift your mood. So for me, it does a lot of things. It's self-soothing. It allows me to relax, and usually in our culture you're doing it as a group, so you are in turn creating a social network of support. So for me, the practice of like getting the beans, roasting them, grinding them, putting it in the Gemini, heating it up, like doing that process is a mindful activity for me. And what I think about usually when I'm doing it is just like, can I be fully present? Like right now, this is what I'm doing. And I like think about this is an activity that my ancestors have done for years, that my grandma has done. And I feel connected to them. And like, even if I can't be with them physically, like it allows me to mentally be with them and remember all the dope times that I got to like just kick it with family and like that being a regular part of my day. So all in all, like what I'm saying here is once you can identify it and once you have like taken the space you need, like this third step is like really how do I shift out of that? Something else that's self-soothing for me is like I took a nice hot shower, did my exfoliating, and I'm in my comfortable pajamas because I already feel uncomfortable and sad on the inside. So, something that I can do lovingly for myself is like, let me take care of my skin and my body and like, let me at least feel good physically if I'm not feeling good emotionally. And being comfortable helps. So, when I'm at home, I love me some sweats. Okay. I got me some, call them my self love sweats. They actually say self love on them. Um, and my robe or my comfy hoodie, like nothing is worse than like for me personally feeling uncomfortable in my body, like my skin, and then also internally feeling uncomfortable. It's like I need to have peace on one side at least. And I know a lot of people will try to self-soothe with alcohol or with drugs or whatever the case is, and it might be your coping mechanism for now, and you're starting where you're starting. The first step is to just be aware that that's what you're doing to cope, because that will turn into an addiction. Because the longer you don't actually deal with the trigger, even though maybe you're taking yourself, that's how you're taking space or that's how you're trying to relax your mind, it doesn't actually eliminate the trigger because you haven't addressed it and you haven't found a way um, to manage it whenever it comes up. So I get it. A lot of us tend to be avoiders, and trust me, we are not alone in this. It is a global epidemic. It just it it'll just continue and then it'll become addiction because you're constantly using that. But really what your problem is that you keep getting triggered or life is hard and you haven't found a way to talk about it and deal with it outside of this. And it might be an escape, but it's only ever a temporary one and you got to continue to use it. Whereas if you use these other techniques, after a while, those triggers just don't, they're just not as strong because you're aware of them and you can communicate them effectively, and you can place boundaries for yourself. So that is another thing that I want y'all to like take with you. And again, the reason why I'm talking about all this and like how to manage these things is because the whole theme of this month is to go from surviving to thriving. The tools that we've used thus far have helped us survive, but they will not help us thrive. And these are better, healthier tools for us to do this. And I want you to be able to envision and have a better tomorrow. And that last step really is dependent on how you respond to the situation. So if you're doing these techniques and you're following this, like I said, I had to do that this morning. I was like, oh my God, like, are you kidding me? And instead of like immediately jumping on Twitter and like tweeting stuff or whatever, I was like, what like what do I need in this moment and what am I feeling? Like I just had to breathe and I was like, I don't need to get up yet. I need to just feel what I'm feeling. And what I was feeling was hurt, sad, extremely vulnerable and weak because I was like, I can't go over there. I can't save people. I can't help them. physically, right? But I was like, I can help them mentally. And I was like, this is an important episode because people are dealing with extreme triggers right now, extreme PTSD, and until they learn how to manage it, they're going to stay in this cycle and they're not going to be able to like help themselves. And I was like, well, what do I need to help myself so that I can show up the best way that I can? And it was like, I need to take it slow and I need to take a breath. And I did. I let myself lay in bed for way longer than I had planned on. Did my breathing exercises, read some like more positive affirming quotes, looked at some because you want to like you really just trying to get to calm. So I was like, let me look at nice views. I am a water baby, so looking at ocean pics. And then I was like, okay, you know what? What's better than looking at water? Being in water. So I was like, let me take a hot shower and relax. Um, that actually helps your body and your muscles be able to relax and do my exfoliating, take care of my skin and my scalp, and at least feel like, you know what, I'm blessed to have access to do all of these things. I know that others are suffering without it. And so I need to appreciate and bask in this and like understand that taking care of me is taking care of everybody else because I can't show up if I don't do it. And so again, I'm like, practice what you preach, sis. This is what I do. I talk to myself. This is how I decided to respond in this situation of being triggered. Was like, let me take care of me first because obviously the trigger was intentional today, and social media exacerbates that. And I was like, I cannot stay on my phone looking at this. I know what's happening. I'm not going to ignore it. I know that I'm sad about it and that that's not going to change the reality of the situation, but I can at least change where my heart posture is and like focus on me for the moment. So I say all that to say that you want to like decide, is the response gonna be worth it in this moment? Maybe, maybe not. And like, just think about it with your friends and whoever else. It's, yeah, I could cuss them out and it might feel good, but it might not actually change anything. And once that moment is gone, I still have to deal with my feelings about it. And that's what I had to do today. So I just hope that that's helpful to everybody. Really think about it. Again, I'm going to link this document, this toolkit, because it breaks it down really well, and gives you some prompts so that you can do this on your own. But again, I'm like, please, if you can, do this with a friend, someone who is like aware of the things that you've gone through in life that might have some understanding, or therapist who can create a non-judgmental space for you with your friends. As part of trauma bonding, we're all going through the same thing. If you need to, we are always in Tigray Club on Clubhouse. Um, if you want a space virtually to find where other people are also dealing with the same thing, but just create that space for yourself or find one that already exists is usually what I tell people, because it's so difficult. And so what I want to manifest for people, um, as we're dealing with these triggers, myself included, and just trying to get our brains back, because this is exhausting. Being triggered all day, every day is so mentally exhausting. It's hard to focus. It's hard to want to continue building things. It's find your purpose, find what keeps you going. When people keep asking me, how do I do this, how do you do 4 shows a week? It's insane. Like, you're doing so much. It's like, I know that I'm doing this on purpose, with purpose, and I do this with a tribe of people supporting me, family that's here for me, that keeps me grounded, and I use my coping mechanisms every day. Y'all love to tell me, girl, your skin look good. Like, you out here glowing, you out here popping, da da da. Because I do this. I know a lot of you ask me all the time how this is how. This is how I do this. This is how I show up for myself. This is how I grieve. And I do it daily, 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 daily. Every day does not look the same. I thought I was going to be way more productive today. This is as productive as I'm going to be. Um, Working quietly, all of these things. Actually, announcement, I will not be doing live shows for November because I know that that month is going to be so triggering. Um, I know being in DC for the protest is what I need, even if it's the big crowds are overwhelming for me. Seeing my friends and taking the time to be around my loved ones who are also dealing with the tragedy of what's happening in Tigray um, feels so much better because I don't have to explain myself in those settings because we all feel it together. So if I see you in DC, it's love and light. Um, Hopefully get to love and hug on some people. I am vaccinated, so I'm only going to be around people who are also vaccinated, and I will be masked up. So please, as best we can, try to stay safe while we do it. But I knew in my heart and my spirit I needed to be with the people who have been holding me down all year long on such a difficult anniversary, and it's making me sad now thinking about it. Um, so just know that I love all of you guys, and what I'm manifesting for myself and for all of us is that we continue to find a way to cope and manage this as healthy as we can, and to break some of these generational curses that have continued to um, just continue to push our suffering. This is a time where everything should be very clear. Everything. Like why our parents are the way they are, what our people have suffered, what is the response from the world, like who you are and what your purpose is. When you're in so much tragedy, it gives you so much contrast, and that contrast gives you clarity. And this is another tool for you guys on how to get that clarity for yourselves, how to do the work. We always say do the work. This is doing the work. Managing your triggers helps you become and maintain um just become a better person, but also maintain your sanity and continue to live a life of purpose and to be at peace. I think that's what we all want, and to find a way to be loving and to be loved, right? You got to do one to get the other. So I'm manifesting that for all of us. I'm manifesting that you find the way that works for you in managing your triggers, and that you find the support that you need to do it all, because I need you to make it to tomorrow, and we need you to make it to tomorrow. Your families need you to make it to tomorrow, because this world doesn't change and get better until we all do. So with that, I love you guys, everybody. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share the channel. Really transitioning to this YouTube. I love and appreciate everyone who's rocking with me and with Uprooted Network as we continue to grow. We're really all we got, is what everyone keeps saying, but I think that we can be more than that, because we're amazing and beautiful people, and we have the power to change our outcomes. So, y'all, that's Manifest Mondays. I will see you on Wednesday for my episode with Fabu, who I love and adore, for Black Women Wednesdays. And then Thursday, we're going to talk about, let's break down this patriarchy. Let's break down misogyny, and let's see if that's another curse we could break for our people. So I love you all. Enjoy the rest of your Monday. I will see you guys on the interwebs. And that's it. Peace out.